8 months ago, a movie called X came out on theaters. It was directed by Ty West, and I did made a vlog out of that movie. And I, as much as I can remember from that movie, I remember that I like it. I like it. I really like it, and kind of changed my opinion on Ty West, considering that I kind of had a bad start with Ty West. I knew that he was a competent director because there are people who like his films, but unfortunately, my introduction to this guy was mostly out with one of the stories on VHS, in which his segment was kind of like the weakest of them all, and also it was also a little bit weak his segment in the ABCs of Death. And I haven't seen much about him, as a full-fledged director, and I was kind of a bit skeptical of why people like him. That is until X came out, and I do remember that on that on that vlog, I was kind of apologetic on underestimating him. I'll say. Little did I knew that once I finished watching X and liking it a lot, I kind of stumbled with the news that while he was producing X, he and his crew at the same time they were secretly working on today's subject, which is none other than Pearl, the prequel of X. And that was actually one of the surprises that I had, because it's been now 8 months, and it's rarely to see a sequel or let alone prequel to come out at the same year of the original. The last time I witnessed something similar to that was with Matrix Reloaded, and then a few months later they pull out the Matrix Revolutions. That was kind of the closest to experience something like that. But in this case, Pearl came out, and funnily enough, this movie's competition is none other than The Woman King. And I was a little bit kind of like on the balance and trying to decide which one should I watch. I am interested on watching the prequel of X, or I am interested on the movie that it has some controversy, but I feel very, very curious to watch it, because I was like, damn, this is kind of like Wakanda Forever, but with women. I was kind of joking here and there, just in case. Don't take me too seriously. But ultimately, I went on with Pearl, because honestly, the X was a good movie, so much that I was very curious to see how the prequel holds up. Which unfortunately for prequels, they usually tend to be kind of like lower tier to always the originals, and they have kind of like this stigma that it's not gonna be as good as the original, because it has this connotation that if you've seen the original, then when you see a movie that takes place before, you basically have the knowledge about story-wise how it's gonna end up. The only thing that prequels do most of the time is kind of show you the gears on story-wise how a certain character turns into, like, for example, how Anakin Skywalker turned into Darth Vader, what led into this, what is this motivation? What was his life before it turns into the Dark Lord or something like that. In this case, we know that if you've seen X, it's basically you're gonna see the life of our antagonist before of course the events of the main movie. Yeah, if you remember, Pearl is the main antagonist of X, and if you remember her, she was basically this old lady who has kind of like this grand illusion of grandeur. She is very horny on young teenagers and also very hungry of about the world of movies, because she wanted to secretly become part of these Jews who were filming their own porn. And she does very creepy things, including killer things. And she does it also with the help of her husband. What was it? Howard. Howard. Oh, he was very deadly with a shotgun. And well, yeah, she was very horny, but she can't do it with her own husband, because her husband has a sick heart, and he can't get too excited, for the lack of better words. So that's basically the gist of how she was on X. But how was she on her own movie, Pearl, which is the prequel, to see how this character come about? Well, I just saw it, and guess what? It comes in one of those rare occasions in which the prequel comes out as really good. Let me tell you, that movie was really good. It kept me up on the edge of my seat, and I just came out mildly disturbed, because it's probably one of the most disturbing movies that there is. Sorry, I got a little bit of a cramp on my foot. And it happens sometimes with me that I get into a position and you feel the foot that it stretches out so badly. But anyway, still, this is probably one of the most disturbing movies I have seen in a good way. And coming from me, that last week I saw Barbarian, and I liked it despite some of the plot holes. This one, it was kind of like one of those art house slasher films that even if you haven't seen the X, even if you haven't seen that one, this one comes out almost like a standalone film that you don't need to see the original in order to get into it. You can watch this one, in different order, and you're gonna come out having kind of like a different experience out of it. Either you come out seeing this one first and then see what happens in the future, or you, like I did, seeing the original and then out of curiosity seeing how it comes out. And both of them have their own way to show their uniqueness on the slasher horror and its techniques. Sorry about that. So anyway, let's get started by stating that, yeah, this is a prequel, and we just see Pearl, our protagonist, as a farmer girl played by Mia Goth, and she has this illusion and she has these dreams that she just wants to get out of the farm and become a star. She wants to become a movie star by dancing and singing and all these things. Oh, I forgot to mention, this movie takes place in 1918, to be specific. It was the time in which World War I is ending, and there's the Spanish influenza. But continuing on with our protagonist, the only problem that the protagonist has is that, for one, she lives with a hectic life on the farm because she has to deal with her tyrannical German mother, who she's very strict. She always makes her, work around the house. She wants no nonsense. Like, for example, she doesn't want her to, to go and try out her dreams of becoming a star. She's always like, no, you're gonna do this and you're gonna do it because I ordered it so. She's very tyrannical, like I say. It's almost like Carrie's mother. Another reason she does that is that Pearl also has to take care of her catatonic father, played by Matthew Sunderland, who he's always in a wheelchair, like, almost dead, like something like that, and of course she's also waiting for her husband Howard, who he's out there fighting the war, and basically this is just the setup of the story, in which we have this character, dealing with those problems, but the crux of the movie is that the more we see the events of the movie, little by little you might know that this character right on the get-go is not exactly the sanest person you could ever see, because this is mostly a movie in which you see a person that right at the beginning, there's something wrong with that character. Those delusions of grandeur and those dream sequences, it's just bananas. It's just peaches compared to what she's gonna turn, and the movie gradually has this character going from one point of insanity to another, and it's escalating in psychopathic scales, I will say. Considering that we know that this is the character and how it's gonna end up on the original movie, X, and that kind of turns into a character study in a very mesmerizing way. So let's talk a little bit more about the character in this case. Let's talk our protagonist, Mia Goth, the actress who plays Pearl. She does a fantastic job playing the character. She does it every moment that she's in, and whenever she does some crazy shit, you're just glued to the screen. You're like, what in the world? And it's hard to feel sympathetic to this character. The movie actually tries to make you feel, considering the condition that she is, but how can you feel sympathetic for a character that right in the first 3 minutes of the movie, she just impales a goose with a pitchfork, and feels kind of like no feelings towards it. And honestly, this kind of plays out a little bit of the trope that that a psychopath is someone who throws rocks at puppies or kills off innocent bugs and all these things. The typical trope of the little psychopath. It kind of plays out like that, in which this character really has something wrong in it right in the beginning, and the more you see the movie, it gets worse and worse and worse. Like I said, from impaling a goose, and from making out with a scarecrow, until kind of like it comes to kind of in a moment in which she finally explodes, and it becomes that this is a character that, well, there's no turning it around. The character just becomes what it is. And like I said, very big credit to Mia Goth on her fantastic acting, on showing the range of emotions that this character has, and it really shows kind of like this passion. on having this character. Did I mention that she actually plays the same character in the X movie? Actually, she plays a dual role on X as the protagonist. What was it? You know what? I forgot the name of the other character, Maximo or something like that. I forgot the name. But she plays the protagonist and the antagonist in X, and she reprises her role as the younger version of Pearl in this case. Man, it's very believable, and so much that even the character in the movie, it sometimes comes off like, for example, trying to help her, and whenever she spouts out something, the people are like, oh look at the time, I gotta go. That's kind of like the biggest reaction that you get from any of the characters when they see her true self, let's say. Let's give it a credit to the other actors, of course. We got Tandy Wright playing as the mother. That mother, it's just much like these kind of other mothers, like Carrie. It's one of those hateful characters in which kind of makes you question that if she genuinely loved her daughter or pretty much loved her religion. She's very tyrannical. She's very on par as Carrie's mother, in which she's always uptight, very bound to the rules, and apparently she's kind of like she's a sympathizer of Germany because there are times when she talks German. Also, considering that 1918 was kind of almost the end of World War I, and the enemy of the United States was Germany. I don't know exactly how migration kind of work on in how can I say in that day and age. But you can tell she's almost. You could even put her into a Nazi German uniform, and you'll see that it kind of fits. She always kind of like fights with her daughter because she's like, I know that you. I act like this because I want you to be ready, because I don't want you to be weak. Something like she's kind of like this uptight. Funnily enough, this is a character that you're gonna naturally hate in this day and age. But considering how Pearl is gonna end up in the original movie, you're kind of like, maybe she is basically she's basically, how can I say, doing the right thing to contain a psychopath. But you know the term that if you keep bottling negative emotions, it will then come one day that it's gonna implode or something like that. Although there is a moment in which I was like, yeah, take that, bitch. Also, I have to mention that the father, played by Matthew Sunderland, like I said, he's always in the wheelchair or kind of like almost comatose. But you can tell that this guy kind of have the, he kind of sells it because he's not exactly just like this. You can tell that the guy actually do some acting with his eyeballs and a little bit twitching his mouth. He's like, and he does it magnificently. That is great, I'll say, that you can even tell the emotions of this guy is like, oh, please help me. Funny thing, and I read Jackie Chan's book, Never Grow Up, and he kind of tell a story that one person came to him when he was, he was still, playing as extras. Jackie Chan say that he played as corpse, and then one person come to him and say that you really play like a good corpse. Funnily enough, that kind of reminded me what Matthew Sunderland role in this one, in which he plays kind of like a good comatose guy. He just didn't say anything. He just like, uh, that is interesting. There are some other characters I'll say. Like for example, there is what was the name? Emma Jenkins Puro, who who she plays as Pearl's best friend, and she does a good job and a job playing, as the best friend who comes to her and say that, hey, come with me. There's gonna be an audition on a church in order to pick up these choir dancer girls or something like that. Another character that appears is a movie projectionist played by David Cornsfleet. I look at it on IMDb, in which he easily could have come off as a creep, but well, he kinda is. But he's the one who showed her, the movies, and a little bit to tie into the movie. He showed her the 1918s version of porn at that day and age. Silent movies, black and white, and all these things. Oh yeah, and there are crocodiles, just in case. Just like in the other movie, there's a crocodile. And also I want to give it praise to this movie on the cinematography, because just like X, in which it was shot like Texas Chainsaw Massacre what was it, exploitation type slasher movies. This one, they kind of shot it almost in the style of Technicolor musicals, in which that the colors are a little bit saturated, a little bit grainy, and sometimes some of the brighter colors kind of stand out. In this case, when you see someone wearing red, the red really stands out. This what makes the movie kind of feel like if you're watching The Wizard of Oz, let's say. And come to think of it, the pacing and also the tone of the movie really doesn't. It has still the feeling of a slasher movie, but it more feels like one of those this Technicolor musicals, but something goes wrong, and that kind of makes it visually pleasing and very nostalgically different compared to the movies that we have today. I like the Ty West kind of play out on this one. I mean, even in the first few minutes of the movie, you were almost led to believe that the characters are gonna sing, but they don't. But there is some music choreography in this movie. I'm not exactly gonna tell you when it happens, but let's say that it was one step closer to have our characters sing Christmas in Germany. Almost a little bit like that, I'll say. What else I can tell about this movie? There are some nice blood effects. It's not exactly gory, but there is part that there is gore that I kind of warn you. If you are a little bit, how can I say, sensitive to violence. Although I kind of appreciate it. Not many horror movies they take that path. X was like that, and the other one ultra-violent movie that I remember seeing was Studio 666. That's pretty much I have to say. Okay, what else I can tell? Okay, let's talk a little bit of some elements that I'm gonna try to not overhype a little bit that movie, because as much as I want to overhype it, to how can I say, to make you support all these art house movies, I always feel that not everything should be perfect, and you might find a little bit of a tiny little problem that you might have. Let's say, for example, a little bit the setting, they kind of cram into your head that there is the Spanish influenza here and there, but unfortunately, the Spanish influenza doesn't how can I say, it's not very important to the movie. It doesn't tell you why. It actually, it's just like, here's the setting, that's it. Funnily enough, is that they kind of mention a lot of time. For example, okay, cover your face. There's a Spanish influenza. Sometimes I get the feeling that this is a little bit of a last minute for Ty West to make it a little bit of comparison of the Spanish influenza with COVID-19. And that's a little bit, I'll say. And let's say that it takes a while for some of the crazy stuff to happen, but don't worry, it is paced well. That's kind of like the smallest gripe that I can tell you about this movie. Whew. Oh, but there is one thing that I do want to mini spoil out the movie. Of course, that the movie ends if as predicted. If you've seen the movie X, but I will say that I get a little bit of an unintentionally laugh right in the last minute of the movie, and it's mostly because the final shot of the movie kind of reminded me of that Simpsons episode where Moe opened a restaurant, and there is this moment in which that there is this moment in which Moe gives out a big smile while making a commercial out of it, and he goes like that's what, and something similar happens in this movie that I couldn't help but to laugh, and I was like, Ty, cut, Ty, can you hear me? Cut, tell her to stop. No wait. Let me see how long she holds it. Ty? Her face is getting frozen. Don't worry. Keep it up. Just a few minutes more. I just kind of laugh at that moment, but still, that kind of even if it wasn't Ty's direction, maybe it was Mia Goth doing that. But that gives her a lot more credibility in her acting, and I just hope that they award this. Mia Goth just deserves an award for this one. I mean, there was even 5 minutes of her doing a monologue in which it was fantastic. She probably won me over as being the best actress of this year. Considering that her dual role on X, in this one she did better. Oh yeah, and she co-produced it too, as long as she's also one of the writers. So congratulations on her. So yeah, Pearl is just a dime a dozen on this year. Do I recommend it? Well, hell yeah. Do I recommend it to watch it before or after X? Well, I don't mind, because honestly, this movie could easily be self-contained. It easily could not be a prequel to X. You just can take it as a simple movie about a crazy woman in the past of becoming a psychopath. And it worked. It worked in a lot of ways, and especially thanks to the acting and the style that it adopted. And by the way, there is a sequel coming, which is basically based on the other character. I think it was called Maxine. Maxine, I think it was called. It's gonna be a sequel about the other character. That's what I think it is. I don't have so much information about that one, and considering that I saw this prequel and won me over, hell yeah, I'm gonna watch that sequel.